Is this badge legitimate? Are you authorized to be here?
I am the chief of cardiology.
Her eyes heavy, her badge still clipped to her chest. Chief of Medicine, St. Anne's Hospital. Blue lights flared behind her. She frowned. Slowly, she pulled over. The patrol car door slammed, echoing through the wet air. A white officer approached, hand already hovering near his holster. "License and registration," he said. Her fingers trembled slightly as she handed them over. "Officer, I just came from work." "This is my hospital." He didn't look. His gaze slid over her like she was a stain. "Step out of the vehicle." Maya hesitated. "Is there a problem?" His voice hardened. "Now!" Rain blurred her reflection in the glass as she opened the door, the cold slapping her face. He grabbed her wrist before she could move, twisting it behind her back. Pain shot through her shoulder. Her ID card hit the ground, splashing in a puddle. "Officer, please," she gasped. "You're making a mistake." He pressed her against the hood. "Yeah? Funny. People like you always say that." Her pulse thundered. Somewhere her phone buzzed, an incoming call from Dr. Susan Green, night admin. Then came the click of handcuffs. The sharp metallic punctuation of disbelief. Maya's voice broke. "I'm the one who signs your hospital's medical clearance reports." He froze just for a breath. Then the rain swallowed everything. Rain blurred the parking lot lights into streaks of amber and white. The world felt distant, distorted through the slick windshield. Dr. Maya Caldwell rubbed her temples, exhaustion pooling behind her eyes. The emergency pager on her dashboard was finally silent. For once, the hospital didn't need her. She pulled toward the exit gate. The sudden flash of blue and red fractured the calm. Her first thought was automatic. Someone must have crashed. Then the siren cut and the patrol car edged behind her bumper. Too close, too deliberate. Maya rolled down her window halfway. "Evening, officer." "Is something wrong?" The man's flashlight cut through the rain, slicing across her face. "License and registration." Her heartbeat quickened. "Sure." She reached for her purse, movements deliberate. "I'm the chief of medicine at St. Anne's, just finishing a shift. Didn't ask for your resume." The words landed like a slap. She passed her license through the crack. He leaned down, frowning. "Car registered in your name?" "Yes, why?" "No reason." "Step out for me." The cold tone triggered something primal. She hesitated. "Officer, Step out." Raindrops hissed on the hood as she obeyed, slow, careful, hands on the car. She froze. "For what?" "Suspicious behavior." Her pulse spiked. "Suspicious?" "I parked at my workplace." He grabbed her wrist. She flinched. The metal was cold and unyielding. "Please don't." He twisted her arm behind her back. Pain shot through her shoulder. From the corner of her eye, two nurses exiting the ER stopped, phones raised. "Sir?" One called softly. "She works here. She's the doctor." Blake didn't turn. "Ma'am, step back." Maya's voice cracked. "You're making a mistake." He tightened the cuff. "Yeah, you people always say that." Silence fell heavier than rain. Her ID card slipped from her coat pocket, splashing near the gutter. The gold hospital seal gleamed faintly before the mud claimed it. Blake shoved her toward the patrol car. "You can explain downtown." Tires hissed as they pulled away. Through the rear window, the hospital loomed behind her. Her hospital, its glowing sign receding like a broken promise. Maya stared at her reflection in the glass. Wrists bruised, dignity collapsing under fluorescent light. In her head, one phrase kept repeating, "They'll believe him before they believe me." The radio crackled. Blake's voice, casual, routine. Bringing one in. "Possible disturbance at St. Anne's." Her breath hitched. The words "possible disturbance" felt surgical, clean, detached, erasing her humanity. The car turned onto Main Street. She closed her eyes, feeling the thrum of the engine beneath her, the bite of the cuffs cutting circulation. She'd treated victims of brutality before. She'd written op-eds about systemic bias in healthcare, but she'd never imagined the night would come when she became the case study. As the station lights came into view, Maya whispered into the void, "You don't know who you just arrested." The rain kept falling. The fluorescent lights hummed, a sterile, endless note that gnawed at the edges of thought. Dr. Maya Caldwell sat on a narrow bench, the smell of bleach and sweat clinging to her scrubs. Her wrists still burned from the handcuffs. The holding cell was small. One flickering bulb, a concrete wall marked with names carved by boredom. Two women occupied the opposite corner, one staring at the floor, the other humming faintly, lost in her own rhythm. Maya focused on the sound of her breathing. Slow, steady, control what you can. From the hallway came laughter. Male voices, distant but sharp enough to pierce. "Did you see her face?" one said. "Thought she was somebody." The other chuckled. "Yeah, chief of medicine, my ass. Next time she'll keep her mouth shut." Their laughter rolled through the corridor, fading only when a door slammed. Maya's throat tightened. The instinct to correct, to argue, to present evidence, the habits of her profession, meant nothing here. Authority had flipped. Her credentials were useless, her title erased. Across the cell, the humming woman finally spoke. "They treat you like that because you talk too proper," she said, eyes barely lifting. "Makes them think you think you're better." Maya managed a thin nod. "I thought knowing the law would protect me." The woman laughed without mirth. "That's your first mistake." The silence stretched again, hours blurred. No clock, no phone. Time became an ache. A guard appeared at the bars. Not Blake, someone younger, bored. "Caldwell," he said. "You're free to go." Maya blinked. "What?" "Someone called in from the hospital. Legal department or something. Said you're cleared." Her voice came out flat. "Where's my phone?" "Property desk." He unlocked the cell. The door creaked like it didn't want to open. As she stepped out, the humming woman murmured, "You lucky. Most don't walk out same night." Maya met her eyes for the first time. "No, just visible." In the processing room, Officer Blake leaned against a desk, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up as she approached. Her belongings sat in a plastic bin. Stethoscope, ID badge, phone, car keys. She reached for them without a word. Blake smirked. "Hope you learned something tonight." Maya paused. "I did." He raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, what's that?" She slid the ID badge back under her coat, the title gleaming faintly under the fluorescent light. That the disease isn't in people's lungs, it's in their power. Blake's grin faltered for a second. "Just a second." Then he scoffed. "You doctors love your metaphors." She turned and walked away. Outside, dawn was breaking, gray and fragile. Rainwater pooled along the curb, reflecting the weak sunrise. Maya inhaled deeply, the air sharp with metal and regret. Her car sat alone in the impound lot. A deep scratch marred the side door where the officer's grip had dragged her. She touched it cold beneath her fingers. Her phone buzzed. 20 missed calls, all from Susan Green. One unread text, they saw the arrest on security footage. "Come straight to my office when you can." Maya's reflection stared back from the cracked phone screen. Hair disheveled, face pale. Eyes no longer belonging to the woman who once commanded an operating room with quiet authority. She got into the car, hands trembling as she started the engine. The hospital towered in the distance, its windows glinting in the weak morning light. As she drove toward it, she whispered under her breath, "You wanted proof. Maya, now you have it." Behind her, the police station shrank into shadow. Ahead, the city began to stir, unaware that one woman's faith in justice had collapsed overnight. For the first time in years, Maya felt something colder than exhaustion. Clarity. The automatic doors of St. Anne's hissed open as Maya stepped inside, the smell of disinfectant wrapping around her like a memory she wanted to forget. Every fluorescent light, every familiar hallway felt foreign now, like she was walking through a building she no longer owned. Conversations died when she passed. Nurses who once greeted her with smiles looked down at their clipboards. A security guard nodded stiffly but didn't meet her eyes. Dr. Susan Green appeared at the end of the corridor, her expression strained. "Maya," she said softly, "come with me." They moved quickly, heels echoing against tile. Inside Susan's office, the blinds were drawn. The air smelled of coffee gone cold. Susan closed the door. "I tried calling all night." "I know," Maya said, setting her bag down carefully. "They took my phone," Susan exhaled. "It's already online." Maya frowned. "What?" "The security footage from the parking lot. Someone uploaded it before the police confiscated the copy." Susan turned her monitor around. On screen, the grainy video showed the rain-soaked arrest. Blake's hand forcing Maya against the hood. The sound of her voice. "You're making a mistake," echoed tinny through the speakers. Maya's stomach turned. "There's more," Susan said. A patient's son recorded from the ER entrance. That video's gone viral. 30,000 views by morning. Maya stared, numb. Of course it did. Susan hesitated. The board called an emergency meeting. They're concerned about optics. Maya's laugh was sharp, humorless. Optics, not outrage. Not the fact that their chief of medicine was arrested for existing. Susan's voice softened. They're afraid of backlash. They want to handle this quietly. Quietly, Maya repeated. Meaning, pretend it didn't happen. Susan didn't answer. The silence pressed heavy between them. Finally, Maya said, I'm going to file a complaint, officially. Susan's eyes flickered with worry. You should. But be prepared. The police union, the board, they'll protect themselves first. I'm not asking for protection, Maya said. I'm demanding accountability. Susan nodded slowly. Then we'll document everything. When Maya left the office, whispers followed. A nurse murmured, That's her. Another replied, Can you believe she argued with a cop? She kept walking, jaw set. In the break room, Dr. Alan Bishop, a senior surgeon, board member, and habitual skeptic, leaned against the counter. Tough night, Maya? Her tone was even. You saw the footage. He stirred his coffee. I did. And while I sympathize, you must understand, the hospital's reputation is delicate. Reputation? Her voice cracked slightly. I was thrown into a squad car outside our front doors. Bishop sighed. No one's questioning your distress. But the media is unpredictable. If we appear confrontational, donations dry up, partnerships. Stop. The word sliced through the room. He blinked. You're talking about money, she said, while I still have bruises on my wrists. He opened his mouth, then closed it. She stepped closer. Tell me, Alan, if I were a white man in a suit, would we be having this conversation? The silence that followed was answer enough. Maya turned and walked out. In her office, she closed the door and let the weight of it all settle. The hospital logo, a polished bronze seal, hung above her desk. It once symbolized everything she'd built. Now it looked like a brand pressed into her skin. She sat, opened a notepad, and began writing. Time of arrest. Officer's name. Badge number, witnesses, the list grew. Facts, details, precision, the only language the system respected. Her pen trembled only once. A knock interrupted her. It was a nurse, young, eyes uncertain. Dr. Caldwell, someone left this at reception. A plain envelope. Inside, a printed email. To the Board of Directors, St. Anne's Hospital. Given the recent events involving Dr. Caldwell, it is imperative we review leadership stability and public confidence. Perhaps temporary reassignment should be considered until the matter is resolved. Dr. Alan Bishop Maya's chest tightened. The nurse lingered. I just thought you should know. Thank you, Maya said quietly. When the nurse left, Maya stared at the paper. Her hands didn't shake this time. The betrayal wasn't a surprise, it was protocol. Outside her window, the city pulsed with morning traffic. Somewhere in that motion, the same systems she'd trusted were aligning against her. She folded the letter neatly, slid it into a folder labeled evidence, and whispered, If they want quiet, they'll get noise. Her pager beeped, an emergency case in the trauma ward. Without pause, she grabbed her coat and walked out. Duty didn't stop, not even for humiliation. As she strode toward the OR, heads turned, some with pity, some with discomfort, none with courage, but Maya's eyes were steady now. Something inside her had crystallized overnight. Not anger, but purpose. By the time she scrubbed in, her reflection in the stainless steel sink no longer looked broken. It looked awake. By the time Maya reached the hospital the next morning, the story had grown fangs. News vans idled across the street, their antennas tilted skyward like a field of metal thorns. Reporters pressed against the security line, voices overlapping. Dr. Caldwell. Is it true the officer's been suspended? Dr. Caldwell, do you plan to sue? She didn't answer. The automatic doors closed behind her with a hiss, sealing out the noise. Inside, tension hung thicker than disinfectant. Screens in the waiting area played muted footage. Her arrest replayed on loop, captioned, Racial profiling allegation, Chief of Medicine detained outside own hospital. A patient pointed at the screen. That's her. A receptionist glanced down quickly, pretending to type. Maya kept walking, jaw tight. Upstairs, Susan was waiting. They released the body cam footage, she said, closing the office door. Released? Maya's voice was low, measured. Or leaked. Anonymous upload. No one's claiming it, but it's everywhere. Twitter, the Post, local stations. Susan hesitated. Bad. Maya sat, eyes on the floor. Then let them see it, Susan frowned. The comments are vile. People saying you provoked him, that you were combative. They're dissecting your tone, your expression. Maya cut her off. That's what they do. Rewrite pain until it fits their comfort. Susan's silence was agreement. An email alert pinged on Maya's phone. Subject line, Public Relations Advisory, St. Anne's Hospital. She opened it. Effective immediately. All hospital staff are instructed not to comment publicly on the recent incident involving Dr. Maya Caldwell until an internal review concludes. We ask for professionalism and discretion. Office of Communications, St. Anne's. Maya exhaled slowly. So I'm the scandal now, Susan's voice softened. They're trying to contain damage. Contain, Maya repeated. They mean silence. A knock at the door interrupted them. The hospital's head of security stepped in, holding a tablet. Doctor, there's a reporter asking for a statement in the lobby. Says she has documents on Officer Blake's history. Maya looked up sharply. What kind of documents? Complaints, he said. Prior use of force cases. All sealed, but apparently she has copies. Bring her here. Minutes later, the reporter, a young black woman with a press badge reading the Tribune, entered, damp from the rain. Dr. Caldwell, I'm Nia Porter. I think you need to see this. She laid the tablet on the desk. Files opened. Internal Affairs reports. Blake, R. Each one a story of excessive force dismissed for insufficient evidence. Nia said, 5 complaints in 7 years. 3 involving black professionals pulled over late at night. 2 ended in settlements. Susan's eyes widened. How did you— Whistleblower, Nia said simply. They're done protecting him. But the department won't move unless someone makes it public. Maya leaned back, feeling the slow surge of clarity. And you think that someone should be me? I think they'll only listen if it's you, Nia said. You have the platform, the credibility. Maya hesitated. You're asking me to go to war with an entire system. Nia met her gaze. You're already in it. The weight of that truth settled between them. Later that night, as the city's skyline blinked in quiet conspiracy, the footage aired on national television. A montage, flashing lights, her voice cracking in the rain, Blake's dismissive glare. Then came Nia's report. Sources confirm Officer Blake faced prior misconduct allegations. The story exploded. Maya's inbox flooded. Messages from activists. Lawyers, strangers calling her brave. Others calling her every slur imaginable. Her photo appeared beside headlines about systemic bias and abuse of power. The hospital released a sterile statement of support and neutrality. The police union called the allegations a coordinated smear campaign. Through it all, Maya sat in her office, eyes fixed on the rain streaking down the window. She wasn't afraid anymore. The fear had burned off, replaced by something colder, resolve. When Susan entered, hesitant, Maya didn't turn. They'll come after you now, Susan warned softly. I know. Are you ready? Maya's reflection in the glass looked older, sharper. I don't need to be ready. I just need to be right. Outside, thunder rolled across the city like an answer. The precinct's conference room smelled of stale coffee and power. A long table stretched under harsh fluorescent light, flanked by men in uniform and suits who spoke in clipped tones, their faces unreadable. The flag hung limp in the corner, motionless even as tension thickened the air. Dr. Maya Caldwell sat at one end, posture straight, hands folded tightly to hide the tremor in her fingers. Across from her sat Officer Ryan Blake, his expression composed, almost smug. His badge gleamed under the lights as if it had already been polished for victory. A police board representative cleared his throat. This hearing is an internal review regarding the detainment of Dr. Caldwell on October 23rd. Officer Blake, you've already submitted your written report, correct? Blake nodded. Yes, sir. And Dr. Caldwell, you're here of your own accord? I am, Maya said, voice level. The representative gave a perfunctory nod. You may proceed. The stenographer's keys began their faint rhythm. Blake started. Around 2300 hours, I observed a dark sedan parked near St. Anne's Hospital. The vehicle's lights were off, engine running. Due to recent reports of break-ins, I approached to investigate. Was the suspect cooperative? Another board member asked. She became defensive, Blake replied. Claimed she worked there. Refused to exit the vehicle at first. Maya's jaw tensed. Continue, the representative said. I followed procedure. Asked her to step out for officer safety. When she hesitated, I initiated detainment to ensure compliance. Did she resist? No physical resistance, Blake said. But verbal hostility. Elevated tone. Attempted to assert authority over the situation. That line, assert authority, hung in the air like an accusation. Maya spoke. I told you I was the chief of medicine. My badge was visible. Blake gave a slight shrug. People lie about jobs all the time. The representative turned to her. Dr. Caldwell, your version of events? Maya straightened. I had just completed a 14-hour trauma shift. My car was parked in the employee lot. Officer Blake pulled me over before I reached the exit. He demanded identification, which I provided immediately. When I explained I worked there, he dismissed me. He escalated without cause. Blake leaned back, smirking faintly. She refused to comply. I refused to surrender my dignity, Maya said sharply. The room went still. A woman on the board cleared her throat. Dr. Caldwell, were you aware the officer was responding to a security alert in the area? No alert was reported to hospital staff, Maya replied. And I was the one who signs every security coordination memo between this hospital and your department. I would know. Blake's smirk faltered. Another officer interjected. Doctor, is it possible you misinterpreted the officer's instructions due to stress? Maya met his gaze. No, I interpreted them exactly as intended. The representative gestured for calm. Let's remain professional. Maya inhaled slowly. Her pulse steadied. Professionalism isn't the issue. Pattern is. I've reviewed the public record. Officer Blake has 5 prior complaints for excessive force and racial bias, all dismissed. Would you like me to list the dates? The room shifted, subtle but visible. Blake's jaw tightened. The board representative frowned. That's not relevant to this specific inquiry. It's entirely relevant, Maya said. Because this isn't an isolated incident. It's a system protecting itself, Blake's voice rose. You calling me a racist, doctor? I'm calling you predictable. Gasps rippled around the table. The representative slammed a hand down. Enough. We'll adjourn if this becomes a spectacle. Maya leaned forward, her voice low, controlled. You can silence me here, but the footage already speaks louder than you ever will. The room fell into a heavy, embarrassed quiet. After a long pause, the representative said stiffly, The board will review testimony and evidence. A decision will be issued within 10 business days. Officer Blake, you'll remain on administrative leave. Blake scoffed under his breath. Administrative leave, he muttered. Vacation, basically. Maya gathered her papers. Her hands no longer trembled. As she stood, the representative added, Dr. Caldwell, thank you for your cooperation. She looked at him evenly. I didn't cooperate. I told the truth. Then she turned and walked out. The corridor outside was lined with officers. Some avoided her eyes. One, a young black rookie, met her gaze briefly, his expression unreadable but human. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Maya returned it. Outside, the air was cool and raw. The city felt both enormous and small, like a machine she'd seen from the inside and finally understood. Susan was waiting by the car. How did it go? They listened, Maya said, sliding into the passenger seat. But they didn't hear. Susan drove in silence for a while before saying, The hospital board's meeting tomorrow morning. They're uneasy. Maya stared out the window. Let me guess. Public image again. They're saying donors are nervous. Sponsors asking questions, Maya almost laughed. They'd rather lose their conscience than their funding. Susan's voice was barely a whisper. They're asking if you'll consider stepping down temporarily. Maya's hands clenched. Temporarily. That's what they call punishment when they're too polite to name it. Susan didn't respond. When they reached the hospital parking lot, the same one where everything began, Maya paused before stepping out. The asphalt glistened under streetlights, rainwater pooling where she'd been pinned days earlier. She looked at it, then said quietly, I told him he'd regret it. Susan frowned. Who? Blake, but I wasn't talking about him anymore. Maya walked toward the hospital entrance, the night air cold against her skin, her resolve burning steady beneath it. The door slid open. Cameras still watched, headlines still raged, but for the first time she felt in control of her own narrative. The battle had shifted, and she was done asking for fairness. She was coming for truth. The boardroom at St. Anne's was designed to project calm authority. Mahogany table, leather chairs, a wall of framed accolades gleaming beneath soft, recessed lighting. But as Maya entered, the air felt charged, brittle. The people she'd led for years now studied her like a liability under evaluation. Dr. Alan Bishop sat at the head, tie perfectly knotted. Around him 5 board members, faces neutral, hands folded. Susan was there too, seated near the end, her expression taut with apology. Maya, Bishop began smoothly, thank you for coming. We know this has been a difficult week for you. She remained standing. It's been a difficult week for the hospital. For truth, a pause. The PR director, a woman named Claire, adjusted her glasses. Public reaction has been intense. While we support you personally, the situation is creating strain on our partnerships and donors. We need to discuss a temporary solution. Maya's voice stayed calm. You mean my removal? Bishop cleared his throat. A voluntary leave of absence. Just until the review concludes. Maya laughed softly. You want me invisible until you decide what's safe to say in your press releases. Maya, Susan began, but Bishop cut her off. No one is questioning your competence, but perception matters. The hospital can't appear politically biased. Biased. Maya's eyes narrowed. You mean human? The silence was thick. Claire tried again, her tone managerial. If you step back now, you protect the institution's reputation. Later you can return without controversy. Maya looked around the table. Do any of you even hear yourselves? You're asking me to sacrifice my career so the hospital doesn't have to admit complicity. Bishop exhaled. We're asking you to think strategically. I've been strategic my entire life, she said. Every word I said, every tone I used, every smile calculated so that people like you would feel safe around a black woman in power. And still, here we are. No one spoke. She leaned on the table, voice low. You watched the video. You saw me shoved against a car. And your response isn't outrage, it's optics. Susan's voice cracked. Maya, please. Maya turned to her friend. You told me to document everything. I did. I kept receipts, memos, emails, including the one where Bishop recommended my reassignment before I'd even been released from custody. Bishop's composure faltered for the first time. That was a draft, not a directive. Intent is enough, Maya said. You've all made yours clear. Claire cleared her throat. If you refuse the leave, the board will be forced to fire me. Maya said, do it. On record. Maya, don't, Susan whispered. But Maya's resolve was absolute. I've spent 15 years building this hospital's reputation for equality, for community trust. If you destroy that because you're afraid of bad press, it's not my name you'll bury. It's your integrity. Bishop's expression hardened. We can't operate under emotional leadership. She smiled, weary but sharp. Then maybe you shouldn't have hired a human being. The meeting dissolved into uneasy silence. No motion, no eye contact. Finally, Bishop pushed back his chair. We'll send formal documentation by end of day. Maya turned to leave, pausing at the door. I hope you all sleep well tonight. I won't. But that's because I still have a conscience. When the door closed behind her, Susan followed into the corridor. Maya, please. They'll paint you as unstable if you fight like this. Maya stopped. Let them. I'm done performing civility for people who mistake it for worth. Susan's eyes glistened. I didn't want it to happen this way. I know. Maya's tone softened. But you signed the papers anyway. Susan flinched. They said if I didn't, I'd lose my position too. That's how the system works, Maya said. Fear disguised as procedure. Downstairs, Maya entered her office for the last time. The walls were lined with awards, community impact, leadership in medicine, framed headlines celebrating her early reforms. She took each down quietly, stacking them with methodical precision. The hospital intercom announced overhead. Code Blue, Trauma Bay 2. For a moment she froze, reflex tugging at her instinct to run toward the emergency, but she didn't move. Her badge no longer held authority. Through the glass door, staff passed by without glancing in. A few whispered. One young resident hesitated, gave a small nod of respect, then hurried off. Maya looked at her reflection in the window. Behind her, the hospital's logo, bronze and immaculate, glimmered on the wall like an emblem of betrayal. She reached into her drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was the lapel pin she'd received when first appointed chief of medicine, a caduceus crossed with the St. Anne's insignia. She placed it on her desk, neatly centered, and whispered, "You can keep the symbol. The work comes with me." When she stepped outside, the wind was sharp, cold against her skin. The protest lines had begun to form across the street, activists holding signs, "Justice for Dr. Caldwell. End profiling now." Someone called out, "Dr. Caldwell. We stand with you." She didn't wave, didn't smile. She just kept walking, steady, through the noise and cameras and rain. For the first time since that night, she felt free, not safe, not vindicated, but unbound. Behind her, the hospital loomed like a monument to everything she had loved and lost. Ahead, the fight was waiting, and this time she wasn't walking into it alone. The next morning, the story had broken wide. Every major outlet had picked it up. Black doctor arrested outside her own hospital. Administration forces leave amid backlash. Television anchors debated her case with glossy solemnity, cutting between her photo and the body cam footage. The video had been leaked, no one admitted how. Maya watched it loop on the muted television above her kitchen counter. The flashing lights, the officer's hand on her wrist, her voice calm, disbelieving, saying, "I work here." Her phone vibrated nonstop. Reporters, activists, old classmates she hadn't heard from in years. But her screen stopped her on one name, Officer Hale. He had released a statement through the department. The officer regrets the misunderstanding but maintains that Dr. Caldwell's behavior was non-compliant. Non-compliant. The word landed like a slap. It meant she hadn't been afraid enough. The kettle whistled. She didn't move to turn it off. Then another call. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Dr. Caldwell?" "Yes. This is Detective Ruiz, Internal Affairs." "We're reopening the case. We'd like to speak with you." She said nothing for a moment. "What changed?" "The public," Ruiz replied. "They're louder than our silence this time." 2 days later, she sat in a small conference room at the precinct. Ruiz was a wiry man with sharp eyes and no visible patience for theatrics. He set a recorder on the table. "For the record, this is follow-up on the March 8th arrest of Dr. Maya Caldwell. Officer Matthew Hale is on temporary suspension pending investigation." Maya clasped her hands. "You should have done this the night it happened." Ruiz nodded once. "You're not wrong, but sometimes it takes light to make people see the rot." He pressed play on the footage again. They watched silently until Hale's voice filled the room. "Don't lie to me, ma'am. Step back before you make this worse." Ruiz's jaw tightened. "Protocol violation number 1. He paused at the part where Hale twisted her arm. 2, 3, Maya said quietly. "When he told me you people always make it difficult." Ruiz stopped the playback. "We'll be adding that to the transcript." She stared at the screen. "He didn't see me as a doctor." "Just a problem to neutralize," Ruiz folded his hands. "He's not the only one under review. The department's being audited. Your arrest report was missing half the witness statements. We found one from a nurse who wasn't included in the file. She said she told them you were her boss." Maya looked up, startled. "They ignored her?" "They deleted her statement." Silence, Ruiz sighed. "Dr. Caldwell, this goes higher than one officer." "I know," she said. "That's why I'm still here." Outside, protesters crowded the steps of City Hall. Signs, chants, megaphones. Someone was live streaming, narrating into their phone. "We're here for Dr. Caldwell and for everyone treated as a suspect instead of a citizen." Across the street, reporters swarmed around Maya as she exited the precinct. "Dr. Caldwell, are you planning legal action? Do you believe the department is systemically racist? Do you think Officer Hale should be fired?" Maya stopped for a moment, facing the sea of microphones. Her voice was clear. "I don't need to tell you what the video shows. You've seen it. What I want isn't revenge, it's recognition. Not just for me, but for everyone who's been dismissed, disbelieved, or silenced. Change the policies, not just the headline." Flashbulbs burst around her. She walked through them without flinching. That night, her statement dominated every channel. At St. Anne's, the boardroom lights burned late. Emails leaked, showing how they'd coordinated her voluntary leave. Donors threatened withdrawal. Staff began wearing small black ribbons, her initials printed in white. Susan called near midnight, her voice trembling. "Maya, it's unraveling. Bishop's panicking. The state's opening an ethics review." "Good," Maya said softly. "Maybe now they'll feel what accountability tastes like." Susan hesitated. "They're saying you released the video." "I didn't," Maya replied. "But whoever did, they did what your entire system refused to." Across town in his dark apartment, Officer Hale sat on his couch watching the same news cycle. His phone buzzed with messages, most unreadable, some threatening. His face was pale in the blue TV glow, the footage of him saying "you people" replayed on repeat. He threw the remote, shattering the screen. The silence that followed was immense. He whispered to himself, "I didn't mean it like that." But the world had already decided what it meant. Maya lay awake in her small apartment, lights off, city noise drifting through the blinds. Her mind replayed every voice from the past week, every insult disguised as protocol, every apology wrapped in fear. Yet beneath the exhaustion, a slow, steady pulse of something different began to rise. Not anger. Not even relief. Purpose. The kind that didn't wait for permission. Outside, thunder rolled low across the skyline. Tomorrow, she would meet with the civil rights lawyers. She would testify. She would make the system name itself. And this time, when the cameras turned on, she would be the one holding the light. The city council chamber smelled of old varnish and microphones warmed by too many hands. Rows of chairs filled the space, press on one side, protesters and supporters on the other. Outside, chants still echoed faintly through the glass doors. "Justice for Dr. Caldwell. Accountability now!" Maya sat at the long table in front, flanked by her attorney, Denise Grant, a sharp-eyed civil rights lawyer whose quiet composure cut through the noise. Across from them, Officer Matthew Hale sat rigid in his uniform, jaw locked, eyes fixed on the table. His attorney whispered something, but he didn't respond. Councilman Avery, chairing the inquiry, adjusted his glasses. "This hearing concerns the March 8th arrest of Dr. Maya Caldwell by Officer Matthew Hale. The purpose is to determine whether the department's actions violated civil rights and internal procedures." The camera lights blinked red. Every word was being broadcast live. Denise nodded to Maya. "Dr. Caldwell, please describe what happened that night." Maya's hands were steady. "I had just left the ER. I was still wearing my badge and lab coat. I was walking to my car when Officer Hale pulled up. He asked what I was doing there. I told him I was chief of medicine at St. Anne's." She paused. He laughed. A murmur rippled through the audience. Maya continued, voice measured but edged. "He asked for ID. I reached into my coat and he shouted for me to stop moving. Then he grabbed me, turned me around, and slammed me against my car. I told him I was a doctor. He said, 'Don't make this harder than it needs to be.'" Councilman Avery leaned forward. "Did you resist in any way?" "No, I froze. I've treated trauma victims for years, but I didn't know what to do with that kind of fear when it had my name on it." Her voice wavered, then steadied again. "He didn't see a doctor. He saw a stereotype." Denise placed a hand on her arm, silent support. Hale's attorney rose. "Objection to characterization." "My client had no way of knowing," Avery interrupted. "Objection overruled. Continue, Dr. Caldwell." Maya looked at Hale. "When the other officer arrived, she told him I was her boss. He ignored her. He said, 'Handle her, I've got this.' That line doesn't sound like confusion to me. It sounds like authority protecting itself." The council chamber went still. Denise presented the evidence. The missing witness statement, the deleted body cam timestamps, the memo recommending her reassignment the next morning. Each item struck the air like a hammer blow. By the time Hale was called to speak, his face was slick with sweat. "Officer Hale," Avery said, "do you deny these actions?" "I was following procedure," Hale said flatly. "The area was dark. She matched a suspect's description." Denise leaned forward. "A suspect?" "The report said unknown trespasser. What description?" Hale hesitated. I was told to be vigilant. There had been break-ins by whom?" She pressed. He swallowed. "By individuals fitting certain demographics." "Black individuals?" He said nothing. The silence answered for him. Avery turned to Maya. Dr. Caldwell, do you wish to make a final statement? She stood slowly. Every camera pointed her way. For years, I believed that education, excellence, and professionalism could shield me from bias. I believed the system just needed good people to make it better. She looked around the chamber. But that night, none of that mattered. I wasn't seen as a doctor. I wasn't seen as a person. Just a body to be controlled. Her tone sharpened. If institutions stay silent when that happens, then they're not neutral, they're complicit. Justice isn't about punishment. It's about recognition. If this city won't admit what it protects, it'll keep repeating the same story with new names. She sat down. The room erupted in applause despite Avery's gavel striking for order. Denise smiled faintly. You just wrote tomorrow's headline. Hours later, the council issued its findings. Officer Hale terminated. The department to undergo mandatory bias retraining, and St. Anne's Board under state investigation for retaliatory conduct. The city's statement read, Dr. Caldwell's courage has exposed a critical need for systemic reform. Maya read the release under the dull glow of a cafe light, coffee cooling beside her. It should have felt like victory. It didn't. Her phone buzzed. Susan again. It's over, Susan said, voice raw. They're calling you a hero. I'm not, Maya replied quietly. I just stopped pretending. You should come back to the hospital. People want you back. Maya thought of the walls, the whispers, the cameras. Maybe, but not yet. She hung up and stepped outside. The night air was damp, carrying the scent of rain and exhaust. Across the street, a young black girl stood with her mother, watching her. The girl lifted a small cardboard sign, handwritten in blue marker. She's the reason I want to be a doctor. Maya smiled for the first time in weeks. A news drone hovered overhead, its red light blinking like a slow heartbeat. The world was still watching, but this time it wasn't surveillance. It was witness. She looked toward the skyline where the hospital towered in shadow. Tomorrow she would decide what came next. Maybe teaching, maybe advocacy, maybe both. But whatever path she chose, it would be hers, earned through pain, defined by purpose. Behind her, sirens wailed distantly. Ahead, the city glowed under rain-slicked lights. She walked forward, steady, unafraid. 6 months later, the morning news cycle had moved on. New scandals, new sound bites. But at St. Anne's Hospital, change had left a mark that couldn't be scrubbed out. The board had been reshaped under state oversight. Bishop resigned for personal reasons, though the leaked emails told the truth. He'd been forced out. The hospital now held quarterly diversity audits, training sessions, and community partnerships named after the woman who had refused to be silent. The Caldwell Initiative for Medical Equity. It wasn't her idea, but the name stuck. Maya walked the halls again, not as chief of medicine, not as an employee. She had refused reinstatement, but as a guest lecturer. Students followed her during rounds, listening as she spoke about both medicine and morality. Diagnosis isn't just about symptoms, she said to a young resident. It's about context. Who gets listened to? Who doesn't? Healing starts with recognition. The resident nodded, taking notes.
Yes, Dr. Caldwell, she smiled faintly.
Just Maya now. Later that afternoon, she stopped by her old office. The door still bore her nameplate, though someone else occupied it. Inside, the walls had been repainted. The caduceus pin she'd left months ago was gone, probably boxed, forgotten. Yet something about the emptiness felt clean. Final. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. This is Dr. Caldwell, she answered. A hesitant voice replied. Dr. Caldwell, this is Officer Hale. She froze. His voice cracked. I didn't expect you to answer, I just needed to say something. She didn't respond. They took everything, he said. My badge, my pension. My wife left. I can't find work. But that's not why I called. I wanted to tell you. I watch the video every night. I see what I did. I hear myself, and I can't justify any of it. Maya's voice was cold even. You shouldn't try. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't see you that night. I just saw what I was trained to fear. That's the point, she said. You didn't see me because the system taught you not to. I'm trying to change, he said quietly. I've been volunteering at a youth center, talking to kids about bias. It's not enough, but it's something. Maya listened for a long moment. Then, redemption isn't a performance. Officer Hale, it's a practice. The line went quiet. "Thank you for answering," he said finally. She ended the call without goodbye. That evening, Maya sat at the community center downtown, where she now ran a weekly mentorship program for aspiring medical students from underrepresented backgrounds. The walls were covered with student artwork, paintings of stethoscopes, hearts, lungs, faces of doctors of color who had changed history. One student, a shy teenager named Layla, raised her hand. "Dr. Caldwell, do you ever wish you'd handled it differently? Maybe stayed quiet so you could keep your job?" Maya thought before answering. "Silence would have kept me comfortable, but it wouldn't have kept me whole." Layla nodded slowly.
Absorbing it. Being black in medicine means walking into rooms where you're both the healer and the proof that someone like you belongs there. Maya continued.
"That's why your voice matters." Even when it shakes, Layla smiled. "I want to be like you one day." Maya smiled back. "Be better than me. Start where I stopped." Later, as the students left, a local journalist approached her. "Dr. Caldwell, may I ask one question for our feature?" She hesitated. "Make it one. What keeps you going?" Maya looked around the empty room. The faint echo of laughter, the scuffed floors, the posters curling at the edges. "Because the system that broke me still runs hospitals, courtrooms, schools. Because people still get stopped, doubted, silenced. And because every time I tell this story, someone listens who didn't before." The reporter scribbled the words, then asked softly, "Do you forgive him? The officer?" Maya didn't answer immediately. Finally she said, "Forgiveness isn't about him. It's about not carrying his shadow anymore." Outside, the night was cool, quiet. The same city that once humiliated her now wore her name on banners along hospital walls and public clinics. She stood beneath one of them, tracing the edge of her own printed face, smiling strong. For the first time, she realized she no longer felt watched. She felt seen. A soft drizzle began, and she tilted her head to the sky. The rain washed the air clean, the way truth eventually washed everything it touched. Her phone buzzed once more. Susan. A brief text. "The hospital board just approved a full scholarship fund under your name. For black women in medicine." Maya typed back, "Make sure it lasts longer than headlines." She pocketed the phone and walked on. A group of young nurses passed her, laughing, one whispering, "That's her." Maya didn't turn. Recognition wasn't the goal. Change was. As she crossed the street, a bus rumbled by, wrapped in a citywide campaign poster. "Equity in care starts here." Her own quote printed beneath it, "Justice isn't revenge. It's repair." She smiled, a quiet, weary kind of joy settling into her chest. The world hadn't changed completely. It never did. But it was shifting, inch by inch, voice by voice, and for now that was enough.